There's now a much higher likelihood of a named tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico next week. We'll look at that and two more disturbances in the Atlantic. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back at Meteo Mundo on this late Saturday afternoon. Great to see you. Hope you are doing well. Coming up in this video, all eyes are going to be on the Gulf of Mexico here as we're getting a developing area of low pressure as we speak. The chances of this becoming a depression or a tropical storm have really risen over the last 24 hours. We'll highlight that. We'll talk about the active weather across our area on this Saturday. And there's actually two areas here in the central and eastern Atlantic, both with potential tropical development over the next 7 days. That will highlight. You know, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below what's been happening in your area. You have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop that in the comment section below as well. We'll get started. First thing, obviously, we're going to look at is what's happening here and now with this area that's trying to develop in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. Numbers that you see on your screen are wind gusts in miles an hour. So this is the same disturbance we tracked all the way through the Caribbean for the last week. It has now emerged in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, the Bay of Campeche, and we're just starting to see a low-level center try and get its act together. Notice that we're devoid of wind right here, and that's kind of where we're beginning to see this spin develop. Now, it's going to take some time. This is not going to be a fast developing, fast moving system. This is something that we could be talking about here through Wednesday or Thursday as it slowly works up to the north. The first thing it's happening right now is you can see this spin right now. It's interacting with a frontal boundary. We actually have, let me throw the fronts on, we have a stalled boundary here in the northern Gulf of Mexico and an actual weak cold front, and very unusual for this time of the year to actually bring in some cooler air all the way to the coast of Texas and Louisiana. Again, you're seeing some wind gusts here in the northwest Gulf, 35, even 40 miles an hour. It's not associated with the developing low, but the interaction of this and the frontal boundary, which has been draped over this area. The other thing, of course, is it's continuing to pump in just a ton of rain in some spots. So it's been very active weather for the northern Gulf Coast of the United States, and it's going to obviously stay active and probably even more so as this developing system works its way into the area. So that's what's happening now. And again, it's going to be a real slow go to drift up to the north, but the chance of development now is at least 70%. And we'll talk about the models coming up because they're not only developing a system, they're trying to make it a little bit stronger one as well. Let's get into the rest of what's happening across our area on this Saturday, and then we're going to deep dive into the forecast as well. We'll start off in the Bahamas, where it's actually been a relatively quiet day here across the area. I mentioned that in yesterday's video as well. Just fairly tranquil conditions. I hope you're out going to enjoy a few things here and there. Few storms are firing up right now across the Cuban Peninsula and trying to push their way south and west. That has also led to a few storms today in Jamaica, mainly the central and the western sides of the island. My friends in Jamaica, if you caught some of these passing showers, let me know. You can see the live lightning count here at Meteo Mundo. We're cranking up a little bit of lightning associated with those storms. Dry in the Cayman Islands for the most part. Behind our system, we've dried out Quintana Roo, the Yucatan for the most part, back down towards Belize. Few thunderstorms developing over Honduras and Nicaragua. A little bit more active weather going to spiral back in towards Costa Rica and Panama. You can really see, again, a lot of deep moisture here in the southwest side of the Caribbean. My friends in the ABC Islands, we're trying to get a couple of showers to move back in. If nothing else, some cloud coverage on this Saturday afternoon. But if you've had a little bit of rain for today, let me know. There's been a blow up of a few thunderstorms just off towards your west, and hopefully some of this can actually build back to the east, or some from the mainland drifting back up towards the north. It's been relatively quiet with a passing shower towards Nueva Esparta. We've been relatively quiet Trinidad Tobago, a few isolated showers and storms, and that's really the forecast for most of the Lesser Antilles until we get to the far northern side of the Leeward Islands, where we've had passing showers. Some of it has been on the heavier side. Yet again, Barbados, portions of the island under an active flood watch as I speak on this late Saturday afternoon. We've had a few inches of rain in a couple of spots, and you can see on this enhanced and visible combination satellite, we're right over some of the islands like St. Vincent and St. Lucia and Martinique. We've had a blow up of some heavier rain, still very localized, just like yesterday, but some of this trying to cool things down. I know a lot of folks are saying, Rusty, it's really hot, trying to get you some rain in places like Martinique and Dominica, nice thunderstorm there. Same thing for our friends up in Guadeloupe. We'll have some isolated to more widely scattered showers developing over Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Bart's, on over towards Anguilla and St. Martin. And again, just more tropical moisture in play here to fire off a couple of these showers. No big wind gusts in this area. Winds are cranked up a little bit more over the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. And portions of Puerto Rico today have actually had some very heavy rainfall. We've had some rain passing by the U.S. and British Virgin Islands as well. What do you say we take a look at the radar out of Puerto Rico? Give me just 1 second here to bring that on. So let's bring on the current conditions there. Let me drop off the satellite data for just 1 second. And now let's bring on our radar. So this is the live look to the radar here out of Puerto Rico. Should take just 1 second to pop on, I'm hoping at least. Work with me, as they say. There we go. All right. So there's your live scan. We had really hefty rain earlier today in the northwest side of the island from near Ulti Alto, Arecibo, especially up towards Aguadilla. So very heavy rainfall there. As I've mentioned, it's fairly scattered through the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. A couple of showers trying to hit towards Anegada at this point in time. And some of that rain, again, extends into the Leeward Islands and then back off towards portions of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Not as much rain farther west for today. You can see that. I'll take off the radar here. But a few showers and storms have tried to develop there, especially on the Dominican Republic side. So that's what it looks like right now across our area. Let's get into the forecast. And as we do so, appreciate you guys doing me a big favor, although it's something very simple to do, just hitting that like button on this video right now. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo. You want these daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you want your tropical updates, join our Meteo Mundo weather community. We're fantastic. We're excited about it. You guys are great. Thank you for sharing with the family and friends, and of course, other ways to support me here at the channel as well. All right, so now we're going to deep dive into, and I'm going to get back into here first. We're going to deep dive into, obviously, this area, and then we're going to take a look at the other two in the Atlantic as well. Let's get back over to the satellite imagery at this point in time. I'm going to loop this up as well. Notice we have some deeper convection and you just have some spinning beginning to develop here. It's obviously still very disorganized, but we're beginning to see the first signs of something trying to wrap up in the far southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. Again, there's a second spin up here in the mid-levels as it's interacting with that stationary boundary and then a cold front coming in. Eventually, these will wash out and it will allow this system to lift north. There's obviously a lot of questions still with this, but the opportunity that we're going to have a system that becomes a depression or even a tropical storm. Francine would be the next name on the list. Now, the biggest situation is this. Does the actual center of circulation stay offshore, or does it hug the coastline of Mexico as it moves north, or does it move inland? Because if it can stay offshore, it's going to have ample time to develop because this is going to be a very slow mover. We're talking about a lot of the models not even trying to move this into either Texas or Louisiana until late Wednesday or Thursday. That's how slow of a movement this is going to be. Let me bring on the tropical models, and you can see that spread. I'm going to take off the formation zone. But here are our tropical models because this is now Invest 91L. So because it's an Invest, and you can see the thunderstorms there, we actually do have those tropical models running. Now, a vast majority of them do keep the center of circulation offshore. I mean hugging the North Mexican coastline. And by the way, there could be some very heavy rain there, right on over towards the southern sides of Texas, and then kind of just following the curve of the Texas coastline up towards Galveston, the upper coast of Texas, southwest Louisiana. And you can see they're relatively tightly clustered. But regardless of that cluster, the big question is, does the center stay offshore? So let's get into the models. We'll start with the GFS. We're going to look at the GFS deterministic, we're going to look at the European deterministic, and then we'll take a look at some of the ensemble products as well. So let's loop up the GFS to begin with here. A couple of different things I want to point out. First thing I actually want to do here is, well, I'll just go ahead and let it run for a week. That's fine. So the first thing I want you guys to notice on the GFS model is how sloppy this system stays the next several days, okay? It's going to be very elongated. As it tries to lift north, it's interacting with that front for the next couple of days, but once that finally washes out, and I'm talking it may not be until late Monday or Tuesday, now we start to see this begin to wrap up a little bit more as we get into Wednesday and then early on Thursday. Again, we still don't want to be talking about, definite areas. Remember, we don't even have a depression at this point in time, but all the models are getting a little bit more juiced up with a storm that's basically going to be riding right up the western coastline here of the Gulf and then back into either Texas or Louisiana. So stair-stepping this one more time, and we'll go all the way back to the beginning here. So today, of course, is the 7th. As we get into Sunday the 8th, it's still an elongated area, nothing really defined as of yet. Monday the 9th into Tuesday the 10th, just a little bit more defined. And then finally here, as we get into Wednesday, we could see a system that ramps up very, very quickly. Remember, sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico are well in the mid and the upper 80s. And I can show you some live numbers coming up. It's more than 30 degrees Celsius here in the northwest side of the Gulf. So we'll have to monitor. You live in Texas, you live in Louisiana, you live in the northern sides of Mexico. Please make sure you stay very weather aware over the next week or so. Hopefully just about the next 5 days. We don't want this thing slowing down anymore, because the problem is the longer it stays in the open Gulf, the conditions are finally favorable for more development. I mean, how much time have we talked about how those conditions weren't favorable at all? This is going to be your surface-based winds on the GFS model. Clear to see that center, should be a relatively compact storm, okay? But potentially within that last 12 to 24 hours before landfall, it might wrap up and become a relatively strong storm. And again, the GFS has gone from not much to becoming a much stronger system. So we're going to take a look at this. Notice that we'll finally get a center potentially trying to form here on Monday into Tuesday on the GFS deterministic model. I mean, it's brushing the coastline of Mexico, but it never actually moves on shore, which should allow it to continue to strengthen in the shallower, extremely hot waters that sit off of the Mexican and Texas coastlines, all right? So as long as that center stays offshore, that's the issue. And then you can see it's a small system, and as we get into our Wednesday and Thursday, here it comes closer to upper Texas and portions of southwest Louisiana. If we look at the strength here of this system, and we'll bring it back up here. Let me just bring this back in. So we'll go to right about, let's see here, right about there. The winds associated with this are high tropical storm, okay? And again, these are sustained winds on the GFS model. These are not gusts. So you're looking at the wee hours of Thursday morning, 1 a.m. on Thursday, just off the Galveston coastline, a higher end tropical storm, all right? And again, that's from the GFS model here. It actually has it weakening a little bit right before landfall in the southwest side of Louisiana. But I want to be clear, because we do not have a depression, we do not have a cone from the National Hurricane Center. We're still just looking off of our different models. I already showed you kind of the ensemble of the tropicals, which most of them have this same solution, right? Just brushing the coastline. But just looking at intensity again, you're talking about a storm that's, trying to get winds of over 60 miles an hour here off the coast. Now, hopefully it stays far enough offshore where we don't have as strong of winds here, but we'll see. If it could be a really compact storm, that would actually be great if it stays offshore for Texas, because it doesn't bring the strongest winds. It doesn't look like it's going to be a huge elongated system. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, I mentioned the European model. Here you go. This is the European model. Wednesday into Thursday, and you can see again how slow it is. It's trying to push it basically right up the Louisiana-Texas border. So here you go again, trying to develop this broad low Monday, Tuesday. It keeps the center offshore, but hugs the coastline for a while. Tuesday, Wednesday, south side of Texas, into Wednesday, central Texas, and I'm creeping along, and then eventually moves in. Now, there's a possibility that on the European model, it could be even slightly stronger. It could be even a higher end tropical storm. But notice that the GFS model, deterministic, the European model, deterministic, and those spaghetti plot models I showed you all have a very similar solution over the next 4 to 5 days. This is the strength of those spaghetti plot models. If you look at them, a vast majority have it becoming a tropical storm, anywhere above that black line. And the timing when we look at this here, Wednesday, Thursday, so right here. So again, some of them again, over 60 miles an hour, most of them in the 45 to 50, 55. Some of them keep it as a depression. But it's not going to shock me if these intensities begin to go higher and higher as well. I think there's a very, very high-end chance that we're going to get Tropical Storm Francine out of this, guys. Okay? So for our friends in this area, please make sure that you stay very weather aware. I mentioned, I'm going to bring back on here these buoy observations. These are actual air temperatures right now, which are obviously a little bit wind cooled. Those are your wind gusts. And then these are your water temperatures. Now look, they're highly influenced by all of the rain. So it's much tougher to tell here, but as of note, there are some spots here, and they're not showing up right now, where the water temperatures are at least 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is 30 degrees Celsius. Okay, so there's going to be high content of moisture. We may not have sea surface temperatures that look to be outrageous because of all of the rain that we've had, but the depth of that richer moisture, excuse me, that richer sea surface temperatures being very high should be out there. So that's a situation as well. Now we're going to get into what's going on with the two systems in the Atlantic. We have a yellow, we have an orange. We have a 20% chance of development, and then we have a 40% chance of development with the orange areas at this point in time. So let's bring these up. I'm going to take 1 second here, try and get these two re-looped for me here. Trying to work an issue behind the scenes, so I apologize real quick. Okay, let's see what we got here. All right, so we'll go over to the models here, and we'll take a look at these. We'll start with the GFS, and we're going to go out 7 days with these, all right? Again, 40% chance here, 20% chance with the yellow. Now on the GFS deterministic, all right, in this area in orange, it actually does try and develop a very, again, small storm, and it does, on the deterministic, drive it farther west from where we have this area in orange. So potentially, in about a week's time, we might be talking about a system trying to get a little bit closer to the Lesser Antilles, the US and British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. I'll show you the ensemble members where the majority of them have this much farther north and east and staying away from the islands. But potentially, right, next Saturday on the GFS, we might be talking about a relatively weak system trying to work its way through. Now, is there time that this could become stronger? Absolutely. But we have plenty of time to watch this. But I'll show you that the majority of the models try and pull it north and east of the area. What's interesting is, on the heels of that, this area in yellow, which the Hurricane Center only has a 20% chance, we have a much stronger system here on the GFS. Watch, it began to ramp up behind the first one, and you can clearly see by the end of the 7-day period, we've got ourselves a much healthier storm. So on the GFS, both of these areas actually do end up developing in just a week. That's why this one is going to bear watch. I'll switch over to the winds. Again, these are surface-based winds. We can clearly see the first one beginning to develop, and then try and work its way closer to places like Antigua and Barbuda and Anguilla and the US and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Watch it come in here. What's the strength? Let's take a look. I'm going to back it up a little bit here. This looks to be about the strongest that it is. Notice that it's a little devoid on the south and west side here. So this would be potentially a tropical depression to a weak tropical storm. But there's not a lot of wind on the southwest side. Fast moving system as well. All right. Now on the heels of that one, you've got yourself what could be a much stronger storm right there. One that could actually be a hurricane, okay? On the GFS right here. These are sustained winds over 80 miles an hour. Again, this is a week out from right now. Far away from the Lesser Antilles, trying to go north and west and stay a fish storm. But we're getting a little bit more active indeed. I could take this out just to show you guys a couple more days. Might take just a second to fully loop up here. And so we'll let that run just a couple more days so you can see that on the GFS deterministic, this is going to try and begin that north latitude climb and that recurve well away from the Lesser Antilles and all of the Greater Antilles and everyone in general. Here it goes, becoming stronger and stronger, by the way, right? But hopefully staying and giving us a big breadth of distance between places like Antigua and Barbuda. If we look at the GFS ensemble, right? So we just look at the deterministic. And again, this is over the next couple days. We are seeing that Gulf of Mexico signature. Here's the signatures coming into the central and the southeast side of the Atlantic. Take myself off camera. Notice that the vast majority with that first system are a little bit east of the Lesser Antilles. A few brush it close, and then that secondary system is the much stronger one here. So we'll see a couple of them get a little bit closer to the Lesser Antilles late week into the early part of the weekend. And then behind the first one, we've got the stronger system moving up towards the north. Not a ton, though, of signals on the GFS model. It's all lights out on the European. It actually develops both systems as well. And again, you'll start to see that. Here comes the first one. The European model does bring it close to the Lesser Antilles. And then on the heels of that, the secondary one is stronger and begins that recurve. Yes, that is two different areas there. They're a little bit more tightly clustered on the European model because the European model's faster with development with the secondary one. But you can clearly see there's one and then there's two, and then kind of the ensembles almost come together in some ways. But again, the weaker one west, the much stronger one, which would be the much more concerning one, hopefully begins that north recurve well away from our area. But plenty of time to monitor that. And then obviously, friends, the big story is out in the Gulf. Speaking of kicked up surf and seas, what this is going to bring, here you go. Obviously, western side of the Gulf of Mexico. Still some very strong winds coming off of the United States East Coast as well. Otherwise, the easterlies will continue. Outside of the localized showers and storms for the Caribbean, things look pretty good. And then again, next weekend, I'll obviously be monitoring for some swells to be coming back into the Lesser and Greater Antilles if that system can hold together and try and punch its way in. Rainfall totals could be extremely impressive in North Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana in association with this system and across the northeast Gulf of Mexico in general here as well. We could also see some heavier rain continuing to come back into portions of Central America. It'll be a little bit drier for the Bahamas, Cuba, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. And again, based off of the European model and the approach of that next system, a little bit more heavier rain for the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Leeward Islands. As you go a little bit farther to the south, rainfall totals should be a little bit lower, but overall, there could still be some localized heavier rainfall. Barbados would be an example of that over the last couple of days. Friends, you know I got you covered here at Meteo Mundo. I appreciate it. You can find us across all of social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You want to send me a picture or video, it's mymeteomundo@gmail.com. Again, 70% chance of development over the next 7 days, but really over the next 3 or 4 days with our system in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. Much higher chance that this will become a depression and then likely a tropical storm. It would bear the name Francine, and again, potentially impacting portions of Texas and Louisiana Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Make sure you check in with your local officials as well, but we're just getting this ramped up right now, friends. I'll have the latest for you tomorrow across our area. Appreciate you tuning in as we leave. Thanks for liking and subscribing. You have a great rest of your Saturday. I'll be back tomorrow with the latest right here at Meteo Mundo.